Yeah, you're in North Carolina right now, taking a break on your tour. And we were just talking about how you got back from Europe, and you said things went pretty well over there. The tour's going great so far.
It was insane. Yeah. I mean, it was also crazy because like we hadn't been back in like 5 years, like we used to go
Yeah,
twice a year and then weren't there since like 2018. So it's kind of
yeah,
one of those like, does anybody here still want to come see our band kind of tours? And it was like everything was totally sold out. It was great, like way beyond what we thought. It was just like everyone was so cool and nice, and clubs were awesome, and just had a
yeah,
blast. Despite getting on a plane every single morning, it was great.
yeah. The traveling struggles can be very real. But that's cool to have that support. I mean, I'm sure you missed performing live, maybe. I mean, it's been a while since, the COVID thing, and I know that you guys ended up building out a studio during that time, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, we finished the main room in like the summer of 2020. So,
It was probably a nice home base to kind of bunker down and work on a lot of your latest material that you've released.
yeah, it was like it was weird because it was kind of one of those like double-edged things where like, we were bummed that meant that like fewer people were originally going to like immediately going to be coming out there, but it meant that we had this like headquarters we could just chill at, and that's how we kind of stayed there for like a year and a half. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you work on a lot of your material at that time for the Electric Lady live album that you recently released?
No, that we all did. So that was like, geez, I mean, we just did that this January, so that was like not that long ago.
Okay.
We mixed all that at our spot, but obviously recorded it at Electric Lady. But
Hmm.
yeah, that one we did. I guess we did rehearsals at our place. It's kind of become like the catch-all spot for everything. Weirdly, the only thing we didn't do there was we didn't do most of the last Sylvan full length there. We did that at like a weird house in LA.
Okay.
But pretty much everything we do, some part of it happens there because we're there like every day. It's like weird that I'm not there right now.
Yeah, it's like your home away from home kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's important for any artist or producer out there to have a comfortable setup. I mean, obviously you can get inspired working in new places, but having their own base where everything's plugged in, it's ready to go. I know you do a lot with Modular, so I'm sure having everything already connected and you just walk in and play is probably a lot more inspiring at times.
Well, also, I think I just have like really severe ADD. So at this point in my life, it's like if it's something that isn't working within like 30 seconds of me trying to make it work, I'm already like, forget it. Like, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So, but even with that, I'm like constantly changing it all around, like classic like modular guy, where it's like it's never quite right yet. I'm always kind of like moving the stuff around the room and changing it. But the dream is kind of just to have everything like my template patch or whatever, my like the session that opens when I just open Ableton is like already set up to have like input channels for everything I like, and has the effects chains that I like, and all my auxes all go to hardware. There's like a send to the modular, there's like a send to an OTO BAM, there's like, and those are all getting swapped out all the time, but like it's so that I don't have to spend time like figuring out some hardware thing. I don't
Right.
find that personally to be like creatively inspiring. So
Right. Yeah, troubleshooting doesn't really inspire me either.
yeah, or like it's like impedance matching, just like stuff where you're just like, why doesn't this just work? Like, God damn it.
Right. Yeah, I look forward to the day where we just have a chip in our brain and we just look at analog gear and it works. That would be the dream, really. It just all syncs up. That's the dream.
I'll take a wireless MIDI first. That would be great.
Yeah, that also kind of scares me because I've had a lot of troubles with Bluetooth just in general,
Oh,
but
it's terrible. Yeah, no.
so we'll see. I don't know. Maybe someday. Maybe the aliens will help us figure that out.
Yeah.
I would love for people to get to know you a little bit better. Obviously, you're a part of the duo Sylvan Esso. You've got your own Made of Oak project. You've got your hands in a variety of things with your record label that you started, I don't think, too long ago. But maybe just a quick background on how maybe your journey led you into these projects and what that looked like for you growing up with music.
I started out in band when I was a kid. I played baritone sax.
Cool.
And then I got into just like playing in bands in like middle school and high school, like, not school bands. And then a friend of mine, this is like when I turned 18, like I didn't have a laptop until I turned 18. And my friend Eric taught me how to like cut up sounds in like, Sound Edit 16 and
Wow.
sequence them. I was off to the races after that, and then that was like the
Yeah.
only thing I wanted to do. But so yeah, like I bass was my primary instrument before that. I still play a lot of bass. Like when I produce records, I usually always play bass. Yeah, just over the time, it's just slowly turned more and more into like computers and synths are where I get the most satisfaction creatively. And I
Yeah.
think it's mostly like I was a composition student in college before I dropped out, but just the idea of like being a performance major or like being like somebody who's like exceptionally good at an instrument
Hmm.
never seemed like the path for me. I was always more interested in the idea than like how good somebody was. And I think that's kind of why the natural move towards producing and making electronic music just always made sense to me, because it was just always kind of about the idea rather than, the virtuosity.
Sure. Yeah, I know you played in a fair amount of bands growing up through like high school or maybe part of college before you dropped out.
Oh
What
yeah.
was the final dividing moment of you being like, I kind of want to step away from the band thing and do more of my own solo electronic work? Like what kind of inspired that?
I mean, I just, it's the classic story of I was in a bunch of bands that all broke up,
Mm.
and I was always kind of playing somebody else's music. At a certain point, I didn't want to start another thing that could just break up. And so that's why I started doing my own stuff, because I was like, well, I have to do something where like it's just up to me.
Yeah.
And kind of right around that same time, like it wasn't like a year later that I met Amelia, and then we started working on stuff. And it just kind of, she was kind of in the same boat, and we were just both kind of tired of,
Yeah.
not having more control over the thing. And that was that. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, you also look like a bass player. Every bass player that I've known that's good is either tall and skinny or they're just fat. There's usually no in between. It's like I don't know why, but
We only
that's
have two types.
yeah, there's only two types of bass players I've known. Yeah, you're a great instrumentalist. I mean, you play a variety of instruments, and some of my favorite artists really blend that analog world mixed with electronic music, and it just gives it like a unique sonic capability, which is one reason why I love Sylvan
Thanks,
Esso's
man.
music and your music, because it's that organic kind of mix between the two that helps it stand out, I think.
I mean, I think that's my favorite kind of space for music to inhabit, though, especially when there's like electronic elements, because I think naturally we assume that electronic elements are going to be really sequenced. There's like a mechanical assumption to them, and I think when you kind of break that promise, there's a lot of cool humanity that sneaks in. And I always want it to be a combination. I never want it to be just one thing. I never want it to be like obvious. It's like there's part of me that wishes I could just like play techno. Like I wish my brain was set up where like I could just make straight ahead like Berghain techno
Yeah.
and be happy. And like I'm like so envious of that. But I just can't. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So it always has to be changing. Always has to be weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love techno. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I just can't. It's too. It's so Elaine, and I feel like I'm too all over the place for that. Like I always need it to be changing. I always need it to be,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that too. And I feel like that probably plays into the variety of styles. I feel like Sylvan Esso has like its own sound. I think even your Made of Oak project has its own sound, but I can hear the different influences from other genres as well. I'd be so bored if I only listened to the same thing all the time and probably not as inspired.
Oh yeah. I don't. It's like always shocking to me when I hear that about people. Like,
Yeah.
so I also like a lot of jam band stuff. Like I really like the band Fish.
Yeah.
And I know
love
people who
Fish.
like only listen to Fish or like only listen to the Dead. And I can't imagine that. And I like love those bands, but
Same.
I can't even understand the world where like that's all I would listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need it all,
Yeah, the same way. Totally agree. Yeah, well, you shared a little bit about your background. I know you played jazz in high school, variety of instruments. It's funny because I heard a different podcast episode and you were talking about how a lot of your inspiration for getting into modular and electronic music and that experimental sound was inspired by Herbie Hancock, especially the album Sextant.
Oh, 100%.
And I
Yeah.
know I've heard that album, but I went back and listened to it again today, and like I was like, this guy was on some serious drugs when he made this album. It's all over
That
the
record
place.
is crazy. That whole stretch for him is crazy though, because it's not even just
Yeah.
sextant. It's like
Yeah.
it's like Mondishi and then Crossings and then Sextant and then Thrust.
Yeah.
And then I think he put out the Fat Albert Rotunda like right after that.
Yeah.
Like, and then it was Headhunters. Like, it's just like he was like just on this whole other
Yeah.
tip. And I think I was really, especially being a kid who's like really into jazz and not knowing about that whole early 70s, acid laced like fusion stuff.
Yeah.
The first time hearing that opening thing on Sextant just blew me away. I was just like, oh, this can be anything.
Yeah, I feel like you can hear the freedom of expression that he put into his music through those albums and that series that he made that you mentioned. It's so out there and so experimental and kind of bizarre, but it also has like a unique character to it that hadn't been done before at that time. It almost like when I hear really weird out there music that probably would never make it to the mainstream, I mean, it kind of inspires me to get outside of my own lane of sometimes I feel stuck in the songwriting and creative process where like, it's like, let's try new stuff. Let's do something different, do something weird, make a weird patch or sound and just be more playful. And I want to get into a little bit of the songwriting process with you as well, as far as that goes. I'm curious, like when you are writing for any of your projects, do you have like a specific process of approaching a new song, or what does that look like for you?
Not really. No, I think just like talking about what you were saying earlier about needing to change it up all the time. Like I can't lock into a formula. It's never been a thing that's worked for me. I think that's just it's all because of that same thing. It's all because it's like, well, then I'd get bored with that thing, or I'd feel like I was doing the same thing over and over again. So it's kind of always different. I feel like when I'm working with Amelia, we're both like, we hang out, all the time. So we're just kind of, we have the same set of reference points. And we're each kind of like looking to be able to surprise the other one with like a sound or an idea or something. So that really helps. But it's mostly based on that. It's mostly based on like hearing a thing at the gas station and then like recording it and then like trying to find what the thing that made me want to record it was. It's all like just following the thread with a melody or even just like a kick drum. Like sometimes you just hear a kick drum and you can hear the whole track that it like wants around it, I think the job at a certain point is like staying inspired and staying open rather than like dialing your method. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. This episode is sponsored by Loopy Pro. I've talked about this product on the podcast with multiple guests, especially when it comes to live looping, and I personally reached out to them. It can be a huge pain in the butt putting everything together for a live show, whether it's live looping or a more traditional setup. Sometimes your gear doesn't have all the features you need, and you have to settle or start plugging together a bunch of different expensive gadgets. Loopy Pro is a new live performance DAW and looper, which lets you easily build literally any kind of setup. You can get unlimited loops and one-shot clips, a fully capable mixer, support for multi-channel USB sound cards, lots of plugin support with inserts, sends, instruments, tons of other stuff. But the thing that really brings a lot of artists to Loopy Pro is its deep but easy to use action system, which lets you effortlessly assemble the tools you need to follow your creative vision, especially with live looping. You'll never see anything like it, and you can control it all on one screen with a number of MIDI controllers, and you can even fully automate the entire performance experience. There are tons of artists out there using Loopy Pro at a professional level, like Dub Effects, Beardy Man, and many other artists have moved to Loopy Pro to solve a lot of their issues. It runs on iOS with macOS support coming soon. You can run their VST in a DAW, and you can try it out for yourself at loopypro.com, free for 7 days. So grab that free trial, and you can buy it for $30. Literally so cheap compared to many other plugins out there. For all that you get, $30 is literally nothing. Just don't drink coffee for 2 weeks and you'll have it forever. Check it out. Go to loopypro.com, download that free trial, and test it out for yourself. No, I totally agree. I heard another interview with you earlier, and Amelia talking about how you record a ton of voice memos on your phone, like whether you're out somewhere and you hear like a car driving by or something, you'll just like sample it.
Yeah, like let's see what's on here like right now.
Yeah, what's like your most recent?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, but like right here I have like swallows chatting, table drumming in Damas, pigeons, sunscreen spray bottle. Like
Yes.
it's like
I love
this
that.
is so stupid.
That's amazing. I love a good sunscreen bottle sample.
But I'm telling you, this one was like, it was like the craziest 909 snare. I was like, I have to track this.
Cool. That's amazing. So you incorporate a lot of like raw organic samples in your track. People probably don't even realize listening to your music that there might be a lot.
I don't. And that's the thing. It's like, I think if you do that, I think it reads whether or not somebody knows what you're doing or not. That's what I love about all of that. I don't care if it's like with the live show. Like, I don't need somebody to know how all my shit works. You know what I mean? Like, but I think if you put enough personal elements into something, whether it's a track or a performance, like that reads subliminally, even if somebody doesn't understand what you're doing. It doesn't read that I layered the sunscreen spray bottle sound over that snare track. Like, nobody's going to think that, but they might think like, oh, I've never heard that snare before. It feels bespoke, it feels like intentional. Like, I think that is a big thing we talk about all the time too, is like conveying intent. Like, how do you let somebody know within like 10 seconds of listening to what you did that like everything that is happening, you did entirely on purpose?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to say about happy accidents, but I think when you have an intention behind the song, like it gives it more purpose.
But even a happy accident, like that's curatorial at that point. Like maybe you didn't know you were going to stumble across that, but then you did, and now you were excited about it, and then you use it. I mean, that's not like curation always provides the intent, even if the source of the thing was an accident.
Yeah, I love that. That's one thing I've been trying to get better at, is being more intentional with the music and recognizing when something is something that fits into the story I'm trying to tell with my music. I'm sure you could probably relate to that too. I mean, especially with the lyrical driven stuff that Sylvan Esso has, it seems like every song is telling some kind of story or whatever. So I'm sure there's been a lot of intention with the types of samples and like the vibe that you really put in to support those lyrics.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing. Like having a vocalist it's kind of like cheating in that way, because like all of the decisions have already been made. You know what I mean? You know what you're trying to point everything towards and what you're trying to echo off of and what you're trying to expand. When, Amelia especially like sings something, so much more is happening than just the sound of her voice with what she's saying. And like, I feel like my whole job is to try to like provide all of that context and supplement it, even if that means doing very little, But that's the cool part, is that like, like picking out samples or trying to find reference points or things that can layer underneath her. We already know where we're aiming, you know what I mean? Which I think is half the battle anyway.
Yeah.
Just knowing what you're shooting at. That makes it so much easier to like find a creative solution, I think. It's just fucking easier. It's easier. All the questions already been answered, You're not searching for the answer.
Yeah. Does a lot of times she write the lyrics first and then you create something around it, or do you create like ideas and she writes on top of it, or does it kind of go both ways?
At this point, I feel like it's about 25% she creates the lyrics first.
Okay.
75% we do it all at the same time. And that ratio is kind of always changing, And sometimes we'll throw in like, oh, I just made a whole beat and sent it to you. But that's happening less and less, just because that's kind of one of the least interesting parts to me at this point. I think that's the easiest way for it to feel like, oh, I made a beat and she sang on it. Our music, I think, to me I get excited when it feels a little more cohesive at this point,
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I am curious to talk, and maybe we can nerd out a little bit more. This is the Ableton podcast. I saw you perform and open for Odessa at Denver, the Fiddler's Green Amphitheater, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, right.
That was a really dope show. You guys crushed it. It was really fun. I was like front row, just like first time I saw you live. And it was a vibe. It was really dope. Your stage energy, everything was there. And I was like trying to see, I couldn't see your setup very well. I was like trying to look at the modular and stuff, but you were like just a little too far away. I would be curious, before we go into like the live setup, I'd love to talk about that. I do want to talk about the recent album that you had live at Electric Lady, which I think was in New York. Is that New York Studios in Greenwich Village, I think?
Yeah,
I used to live right by there.
It was crazy.
Such a nice studio.
I'd never been in there before.
So cool. Jimi Hendrix had recorded there. I forget who else. Yeah, really cool place. But I know, and I listened to it, and it slaps. It's a great album, and it's all live. But you took a lot of like your popular or classic songs, and you kind of stripped them down and then worked with several other musicians to perform it live and replacing some of the stems or the original samples with live instruments. And I'd be curious to nerd out a little bit on your process and how you did that, like stemming out stuff. Like, what did that look like working with these musicians?
We started with no stems at all. So I think only 2 of the songs had a stem playing,
Really?
and even then it was playing through the modular. So
Wow, that's cool.
but yeah, we started with the idea of like, because a few years ago we did a short tour with as a 10-piece band, and there's a doc that you can look up. It was called With, and then we did another show of that during the pandemic called With Love. That was kind of the start of feeling that out. We've done some live band stuff in the past, but that was the first thing where I was like, oh, this could really work. And when we got asked to do that Electric Lady thing, we were kind of like, all right, how do we not do the exact same thing? But like, we're at Electric Lady, like we have to make this special.
Yeah.
So our first thought was we called our friend Gabe Kahan, who is a string arranger and conductor. And he's worked with us. He did the strings on Your Reality on our record. And then he also did the strings at the beginning of, Amelia put out a record last year under the name The A's with Alexander Sauser-Manning. And he did this gorgeous string arrangement on that. So we had been kind of trying to find a thing to do together, and he was hyped. So we had him arrange like 4 of the songs, and then slowly started bringing in our friends just to like play drums and do other stuff. So Jen Wasner came back, and Joe Westerlin played drums. TJ Miani played drums. And then our friend Mason Stoops, who Amelia had toured with Marcus Mumford, came and played guitar. But yeah, it's kind of this really like one person at a time, kind of trying to see what was feeling right. And as we were figuring out how the strings were going to work, just kind of slowly adding elements, and then finally we added those last 2 stem tracks, just because the parts are too complicated, essentially.
Yeah.
But then we even tried to make that live by having it all run through the modular. So I was doing like live gating, and it was all running through like a rabbit elephant natural gate, and then into beads. And so that was like my like end of chain that I was like sequencing over the top of the samples in the first place. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Were you using Ableton at all for any of that process of the stem into the modular, or like how were you running those samples?
Yeah, so I was using Ableton, ran the stems into the modular, and then also ran some MIDI for a couple of them where we didn't have enough hands. But it's nice. I think I've been doing this trick with the modular stuff where I'll use a separate output, and I'll just instead of sending MIDI clock, like to a MIDI to CV clock generator.
Sure.
I'll just use a pulse sample and send it out its own output. And so that's like in my work the most like rock solid way to keep the modular in time with Ableton.
Interesting.
I think it has something to do with Ableton prioritizing audio over MIDI in the stack, but it's like rock solid. And then you can like run swings, with all of the various like groove pool presets and stuff. So like it just totally opens up the possibilities with that. So yeah, Ableton set the clock and played back the samples and did some MIDI.
That's really cool. Do you use a lot of the groove pool for some of like your live modular swing and stuff?
Yeah, so for the live stuff, every time, because I'm constantly, the modular's just getting, well, it's kind of complicated. It's getting pitch data. All the oscillators get tuned by Ableton, and then it's getting clock.
Okay.
So, because I usually use some version, like one of the MPC swing.
Okay, yeah.
Presets
yeah,
or
I
whatever.
love those. Yeah.
I'll just figure out which one I used when I was making the track, and then set the clock loop to that groove setting, if that makes sense. So like then like the modular will swing. So then everything, if there's a swing, which is like a lot of our stuff has swing, then everything, it's all kind of locked in together,
That makes it so much easier. Yeah, I hadn't thought about using Groove Pool for live modular manipulation, because it makes sense if you produce a song with a groove. Even if you didn't use the Groove Pool, you could consolidate an entire clip of your beat and then extract the groove and then use 100%. That. Yeah, that's a cool idea. I love that.
Yeah, it's way easier than I think a lot of solutions for it make it seem. You can literally just sample a clock pulse, put it in impulse, or even just sequence by hand, and then run a swing pattern on it. It's so simple.
Yeah. I saw for one of your Live at Electric Lady studio songs, that you were messing with Amelia's voice.
Yeah.
Do you do that a lot, like manipulating her voice through your modular, like running it in?
Yeah, oh definitely. Yeah, well, it's just because it makes it so easy. I mean, if you have it on like an aux send, I'll just have the aux set to an output on my interface, and then that'll run into the modular, and then I'll, whatever the chain's going to be. But there, I think it was mostly beads in that show. I've been really on beads lately. I feel like that's like just such a playable. I don't know. It's just so good. That and the Instruo one, the Arbhar. I think that's the one, the granular Instruo module.
Okay.
Is just like so playable. They're really different concepts, but both of them I think treat the idea of live granular playing as like really in a really like musical way. Like it doesn't feel, not to shit on Electron, I love Electron, but like the octatrack I find to be a very unmusical interface. The inverse of that I would feel like would be these two ideas, which are like not standard, but like every idea comes from like a musical impulse. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not nearly on the same level as you are when it comes to modular gear. I mean, I've got some fun like Moogs and stuff, but when it comes to modular, like I'm kind of at like a basic-ish level.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to jump into the deep end.
No. You're cool because a lot of people listening to this podcast probably are nerding out super hard with you. I think it's great. I mean, this is really interesting stuff.
I'll throw one other thing out there that we haven't made work yet. But the other thing that I feel like I don't see nearly enough people using that I used on the With tour, like the band tour, is Borderlands. That in a live context is like one of the greatest effects. It's so playable. It's so gorgeous. Have you ever tried that? It's like an iPad app, Borderlands Granular.
No.
Oh man, it's like $15. It's the only reason I own an iPad. It's like I literally bought an iPad just for this one app. It's so good.
Really?
It's this like multi-touch. It's just like a granular sampler, but in a touchscreen interface, and it's so musical, and like I use it live all the time. We haven't incorporated it into the Sylvan show yet, but like when I do improv sets and stuff, it's like so good. It's like kind of an opposite approach of like Beads or the Arbhar, but that's really beautiful.
Cool. That's awesome.
And cheap, $15.
Yeah, I love cheap stuff. So what do you do? Do you do a lot of live looping, I assume, with like some of your stuff? And how do you do some of your looping process?
Oh, I mean, how inside baseball? I mean, I know this is the Ableton podcast, but like how inside baseball in the live setup do you really want to get here?
Honestly, I'm here for it.
We could do like an hour just on my stupid live setup.
I'm here for it.
It's so basically like we have like 3 computers.
Okay.
And 2 of them are redundant and they're running tracks.
Got it.
And then the third one just does all the live vocal processing. So I have a launch pad. Her voice is coming in, and then it goes to like I have 2. Where do I even start with this? Like I have one table that's like all Ableton, and I have one table that's all hardware, basically.
Sure.
So she's coming into the computer and into a Mackie that kind of feeds all the hardware.
Okay.
So on one side, I have like a launch pad that's set up. So I have like 3 just normal input channels in Ableton, and I'm just recording her on the fly into clip slots.
Okay.
So it's like
that's cool.
The cheap loop. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. You're just creating new clips and scenes.
Yeah. And if you just, with the Launchpad, it's like so easy because you just touch the clip you want.
Yeah.
Touch it when you're done recording and it loops that exact length. And then I can change the the global quantization just with like a macro.
Cool.
So I can have that be free or set. Then there's 3 tracks next to that feed the same faders that are each have a looper device on them. And so then my like custom page on the Launchpad is like my custom triple looper setup. For like interludes and like when I'm trying to flex for time and stuff like that. It's just like a classic like looper and triplicate where I can do like, reverse, up octave, down octave. Record, overdub, whatever, all the stuff. I can stop what's playing in the clip slot on the same track, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I have a KT granulator running, which is like this ancient granular plugin on one of the aux sends. Then I have a delay that gets synced by the set position, essentially. So it's like keeps switching the delay division based on the song. And then I have a live send out to an OTO BAM. So everything, both from the tracks computers and on the vocal computer, could all run to this same set of effects. But the big one is the OTO reverb.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that
yeah? No, I mean,
linear enough thinking?
No, yeah. No, I got that. That's simple enough, sort of. It'd be easier, obviously, to see everything, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing. Next time you should just come to like a sound check, and we'll do this whole thing live at a sound check, and then we'll make way more sense. But
yeah, I'd love that, man. That would be cool. Yeah, I'll probably see you guys when you come back to Denver, where I'm at right now. I think you're playing Red Rocks and Mission.
Sick, yeah.
Mission Ballroom, the two of my favorite venues.
Oh yeah,
here.
that Red Rocks sold out so fast that we added the Mission. I was so hyped about that.
Yeah, Mission's a really cool place. Have you played there before?
Yeah, we played there. 2021, I think.
Okay. Yeah. It's a cool place because the stage can actually expand or contract depending on the size of the room and how many tickets they sell to give it like a kind of.
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Which is really cool. I mean, if you have like a smaller ticket sale or whatever, they push the stage out so it feels smaller, more intimate.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. But no, that's a good like breakdown of your live setup.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could get into the whole. That's even just the vocals. Like I have like a stem rig going. I mean, yeah, I don't know how deep you want to get this. It's like,
yeah,
to me, it's really interesting, but like, it's so technical. We've got this whole like, we finally got the laptops off stage after sussing out like a network MIDI solution. But now it's like all it's great because now I have this like the Ableton side is all great. I've got a set of like fader foxes that are essentially like my digital mixer for like all the stuff happening in Ableton in all the computers with all my effect sends and all my like track stuff. And then like I have like a fake 2-bus that I've really been I haven't seen anyone else do this. This is a thing that I think more people should do. But if I'm sending stems to front of house.
Yeah.
But I still wanted the ability to have like DJ type 2-bus effects, like I want to be able to like affect the master in quotes.
Sure.
I want to be able to like low pass everything.
Yeah.
So I took my like set of master effects and then just duplicated it on every track and ganged the controls to the same like MIDI fighter twister.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So it's just, one big macro.
Yeah. It's like, 12 low passes all go, but it sounds like I'm just low passing the mix,
Okay. Does that tax your computer a little harder if depending on your actual effects racks on each channel?
So far it's been great. And we're running we're not running M1s on stage, but we're running i9s, like that last Intel.
Yeah.
And they're, pretty rock solid. Now that we've split out the live vocal stuff, they'd also used to happen on the same computer. And Ableton did not like that. That was more glitchy. But now that we've moved all that stuff to another computer, it's running like so slick.
Good. Yeah, I've run an i9 MacBook, and it's been great for my shows. Still solid. Although I will say the M chips are incredible.
Now that everything works on them, they're amazing. Yeah.
I think Alive 11, when it first was released, there was a little bit of glitchiness. Specifically, I think the M1s.
Bad.
Yeah, but they cleaned that up with, I think, 11.3 or 2.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to like get really comfortable with your live setup? Because you've got all this mix between digital and analog happening. 12 years later.
Am I comfortable right now? Like, I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, again, I feel like the best shows happen when there's like a 30% chance of total failure,
Keeps you on your toes.
Well, because like otherwise it's too dialed. That said, we're pretty rock solid at the moment, but it's kind of always been changing. Like I feel like the first version of the band, like the first 2 records, the first like 5 years, 6 years of us being a band, I kind of had this like version of the same patch that I'd kind of been like taping things to. It was this like giant behemoth of like duct tape by the end of it rolling down a hill. And then during the pandemic, I finally like tore it all apart and rebuilt the whole thing. And then this run, we finally got the like fully redundant, all laptops off stage, like no screens on stage thing going on, which has been like, now I feel like I'm like flying.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I like the Ableton side to be rock solid, and I like everything else to be like kind of a mess. Because I want that stuff. I want all the additions to surprise me. Like I want to be excited when we're playing.
Yeah.
Like that's why I have modular on stage, you know? Like I want to pull the fader up and like kind of know what I'm going to get, but not really know what I'm going to get. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I want to have to react to it.
That makes perfect sense from somebody who came from a background of playing a bunch of different instruments, because you don't want to just be a DJ. And I find myself like coming from a jazz musical background of playing instruments as well, that like I get really bored on stage real fast if I'm not holding something or doing something. And maybe you feel the same way.
Totally. Well, and I
Yeah.
think it's just that general thing of like we were talking about earlier, I don't think the audience needs to understand the ins and outs of what's happening, you know? Like the way, like everybody gets what's happening when you watch somebody play guitar. Like we don't get that same thing in electronic music. But I do think it's really obvious when you are engaged as a performer, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's obvious when you're faking it. And, you know, I think it's obvious when you're in it. And I just always want to be in it. So like,
Yeah.
I've got modular up there that I'm running like both stereo granular channel that I'm doing. And then I have like a whole wild percussion setup that I'm doing on there. That's like, I have this whole modular drums thing happening. I have like a Dave Smith Tempest right now.
Oh, nice.
And
Those
then
are cool.
and then I have like a wild like touch plate setup that I've been using. That's like a Hive and a landscape stereo field. Which is, have you ever used one of those? It's this beautiful distortion box. It's like fucking so sick.
Cool.
And like an OP1 mono. Yeah, it's just, so I have this like whole rig of like weird, just, it's all weird, like dirty shit. And like,
Yeah.
you know, like, and I know what I can like program rhythms. I can like set sequences. I can do all this stuff. I can like stretch songs out. But I want to be able to like surprise Amelia every night, you know?
No, I agree. I think if I was playing as many shows as you guys are, I feel like I would get bored just doing the same exact thing every time and hitting play.
100%. Well, and that's the other thing. It's like you play enough of them too, and it's like you can get into this rut where like you kind of do the same thing at the same time in every show, you know, which is like fine. It's great. It's is what it is. But I like having a setup that's broad enough that if 2 weeks into a run, I feel like I'm reciting a song rather than performing it. That I can be like, all right, I'm just going to stop doing that. And instead I'm going to play Juno this time and just see what happens if I play Juno instead of working on the drums or instead of doing that vocal loop thing that I liked. I want to be able to like change and not have it fuck the tour up, I guess. I want to have like options all the time.
I think that's a good goal to have, is don't fuck up the tour.
Kind of goal number one.
Yeah, I trained on doing like redundant playback rigs with Electronic Creatives a while ago with Laura Escudé, and that was like my greatest fear of like helping do some rigs and things, is like if something doesn't work perfectly, then you can only blame yourself for it. That's a bad feeling. You never want to do that. So it's a lot of pressure, and I can only imagine with all the stuff that you have going on constantly, like running around, maybe like a chicken with your head cut off, just checking all the knobs for every song, making everything. I'm sure you got to the point where now it's comfortable, but I can only imagine the anxiety I would have.
That's the thing though. It's like you just figure out ways to like get rid of those stress points, you know? So like I now, like every song when it starts, MIDI gets sent to a converter that tunes all of the tunable stuff in my modular rig to a pitch that makes sense for that song.
Yeah.
There's that element where it's like, oh, well, I know it's fine. And also it's a great, like with analog gear, I set up everything so that if it's not working, it doesn't matter. Like I can just mute it. Like
Yeah,
I have
good.
like the first piece of like hardware I incorporated into the set was a Moog Minotaur.
Oh, those are
And I came up with this way of routing it, which is, I mean, still, I think one of the greatest values as a bass synth you can possibly get. Those things are fucking awesome.
cool. Yeah, they are. They are.
But I set up this thing where like the bass channel was a group channel, and one of the tracks was the audio from the record, like the bass stem, and the other track was a MIDI track that was just doing whatever the bass was doing in that song. And then in the effects rack, in the like the first thing in the chain is an external effect, external audio effects unit with no output set, just listening to the input of that the Minotaur was coming in. And I could just set a knob where I could, one pot then turned the wet dry on that effect thing that essentially turned the Minotaur into like an effect. Like it was like, oh, now I'm like adding in this other flavor of something doing the same bass part.
Oh, cool.
But it's this live analog synth.
Yeah.
But it's great to do that because like then if you bring it in and it's out of tune, like analog synths tend to want to be, or like you had some LFO on the pitch or some stupid knob got turned. It's like, just fucking pull it out. Doesn't matter, you know?
And you got your stem just to take care of it.
Spend 30 seconds seeing if you can make it cool again, and then if not, who cares? So it's like all of that, it's like it makes me want to take more chances, you know? Because like the more I eliminate the like tedium of it, the more opportunity opens up. And I'm lucky enough to have like a tech who fucking rules, who like helps me get the whole thing ready, you know?
That makes a big difference too. Yeah. Having a good tech on your side.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's the only reason I can bring the modular, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that myself every day.
I was going to say, I mean, when I saw you perform at in Denver last, I was like, damn, that's a lot of chords and stuff to carry to set up every single time, for sure. But you're getting your workout in.
Well, the patch stays the patch, but yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Amazing. Well, I would, I mean, you talked a little bit about your live setup, a little bit of your backgrounds, and obviously you're into the analog modular thing, which is really cool. I don't see a ton of people doing that live, which just gives it a raw, interesting, organic sound, I think, on stage. Just something about that analog tone when it's live. It just sounds so thick and unique and beautiful. But I do want to talk about some of your other stuff. What's the latest happenings with your project, Made of Oak? Is that something you're still investing in, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't put out something that's just Made of Oak in a while, but that's just because I've been doing so much other shit. But
yeah, it's been about a year, I think.
Yeah. And I put out an EP with my friend James, who goes by the name GRRL. So there was a GRRL and Made of Oak EP that we put out. And we just did a Boiler Room like a few months ago.
Sick. I'll have to check that out.
And that has been like really, really fucking fun. It's kind of fun. Like I'm usually producing other people. And in this project, James is kind of producing me, which is great. Like I'm like sending him all these like, you know, bass, just all these bits, like me jamming. And then he's like doing the bulk of the like editing and production. And it's just turned into this really great, he always likes to describe it as that he's driving and I'm shooting. And the live setup, we have this, we came up with this thing where like he's on CDJs and I'm on Modular and Octatrack.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm doing like live percussion and sampling on top of James DJing and spinning our tracks and spinning just whatever he wants to play. And it's become really this kind of like halfway point in a cool way where like, because I don't prepare at all outside of like putting samples on my Octatrack, and I come in and just do pure improv. And then James will like set a different, you know, he's the one who dictates what tracks I'm playing over every night. So it's kind of become this like weird hybrid improv and DJing thing, and in a way that has been like so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
And it's just fun to play like, yeah, it's just fun to go like do like hard, you know, electro techno. It's just so fun.
You don't have to go into great detail, but I would be really curious to know, number one, how do you avoid like overlapping frequencies in a mix? Like if you're playing this analog stuff and he's already got like a track, probably with a kick and everything, just like thumping, like how do you kind of improvise and keep a tight mix? And then my other question is like, how are you syncing the BPM or the clock together between the CDJs and your modular?
Okay, so the sync has been a journey. There's a great program that's free that you can get called BeatLink Trigger that's on GitHub that is awesome, that basically like decodes the Pioneer Pro DJ link from the Ethernet cable and then turns it into kind of any number of kind of clocks you could want. So that spits out, basically that's spitting out MIDI clock. When we first started, I had this setup where that spit out MIDI clock, that clocked the octatrack, which clocked the modular. And then the modular was coming back into the octatrack and out into the mixer. So, and we did that and it was good, but if... It's the kind of the stupid thing, but the octatrack is really inflexible when you are externally clocking it. So if, like, let's say there was a tempo push, like if James like rode the tempo up to like ramp us or something, it would catch up, but it would get just off sync enough that like they would be in time but out of phase. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and since there's no way to nudge the octatrack if it's being externally clocked, I would have to stop and restart, which just became this
such a pain in the ass
hassle.
Yeah.
And finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do this like a DJ. So now I just like watch for what tempo he's doing. And then I use the hand nudging controls on the octatrack to just do it like it's a turntable. And it works way better. Yeah. I do think there might be a better way to do it with, if I can get something that will respect the quarter note rather than the 24 parts, pulses per quarter note.
Yeah.
Then I think I could then I would probably go back to the sync, because when it's synced, it's just so, I'm not even thinking about it. You know what I mean? Whereas when we do it like this, it's like about 25% of my time is like making sure I'm in sync with the track. So that's how we do that, is we just don't, and I just nudge it. But the
my other thought is, have you used CV tools with your modular? Like Ableton's pack CV tools? Have you played with that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there'd be a way to because you can.
I have thought about that. I have thought about the idea of but that's the problem, is I would have to then, if I got rid of the octatrack, I think there would be a way to do it where I could clock the modular and it would work perfectly. But the octatrack is the hard part, which is not, I could do it the other way around, whatever. I don't know how maybe we don't need to troubleshoot this right now, but for the moment, that's been working. I do see a world where I might move down to just modular with that, just because it's fun to be able to bring in acapellas and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's worth whatever. I go back and forth on it all the time.
Sure.
But if you watch the Boiler Room, that's all the system I'm describing. It's all by hand, me just nudging the BPM on the octatrack to match James.
Yeah, that's like a classic DJ move, but with modular.
Yeah. Well, and it's like everything. It's like the dumber it is, the easier it is. If you know how to, I grew up doing that. So it's I'm kind of used to hearing when I'm ahead or behind and how to, get there. Oh, the frequency thing. So I stay away from kicks generally, because the music James is playing is so kick forward usually. So I'll try to stay kind of in the mid to upper mid range with percussion.
Okay. So you just high pass filter stuff?
No, because I leave also, I'm just feeding a channel on the Pioneer, the DJM 900. So just the mixer, he's got 2 CDJs going into the mixer, and then the third channel is my input.
So he can control your mix too. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does the level, he brings me in and out. If he thinks I am sucking, he'll just pull it, it's
Nope.
Yeah, but I kind of like that, because it kind of it harkens back to the origins of live electronic music, which was usually one guy jamming on a bunch of hardware and another guy playing the mixer,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a classic. It's a classic for a reason. And so that's kind of how I feel this is. James is obviously doing more than just running the mixer, he's also DJing, but it's kind of nice to be able to just play and have him decide what he's going to bring in, where, and how much. And then if I'm on some cloud about something, he'll lean over and be like, "Hey, ditch the reverb. It's fucking the mix up." I'll be like, "Oh, right, sorry." That happens a lot. But
awesome.
It's everything. It's just listening to each other. I'm really listening to the tracks he's playing, and I really know his DJing now at this point, and I can tell when something's gonna want a bass line or I can kind of just feel the lane, because I'm always trying to do something that he'll want to have the fader all the way up in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
I think it's just kind of toying with that.
And even coming from once again, your background as a multi-instrumentalist, you've probably learned how to really feel off the energy of the other person and almost have that chemistry where there's I'm sure you've been in a setting where you're jamming with somebody and thinking the same thing and you're on the same brainwave without actually saying anything. And that to me is one of the coolest, most magical moments I could ever have, with another artist or musician.
Oh yeah. That's why I still do free improv all the time. That's my other thing I do a lot with friends is totally free sets.
Yeah.
And I think that I do it. I mean, I love doing that, but I also love doing it because I think it really keeps me present. I think especially doing something like Sylvan, which is ostensibly a pop show, there are heads like you and me who come to our shows, but they're also moms and their 16-year-old daughters who come to our shows who just like love Die Young or whatever, you know what I mean? And like want to hear the song that they like the way that they know it.
Yeah.
And like, I love the idea that we can make this thing that like satisfies both of those people.
Yeah.
You know? But it is inherently kind of like, we're kind of like on the rails to a certain degree. You know, like once I get into a song, like I kind of want it to be the song. Mm-hmm. Like the parts before, after that, how I'm going to change it, like all bets are off. But like, I do want to kind of satisfy like the trope of pop in that way. So because I like doing that, I feel like I need to also keep doing like wild experimental noise stuff because I think it makes me way more tuned in when I'm in the pop setting, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like one feeds into the other and satisfies you in different ways as well.
Yeah, it's all I mean, it's all just trying to stay inspired and stay present. Like my nightmare is like our career is going great, but I'm like not even paying attention. You know, like I know I've seen that happen to people. Like
really,
and
they just get comfortable.
I can't do it. Yeah. Well, I think it's easy. I mean, you do the same thing every day, and then you play the show every night. I mean, it's just it's easier than it seems to like get in a, I don't want to say a rut, but I think you can start feeling like you're on television, you know, rather than like alive in a room.
A factory of sound for every show. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good, man. That's a good insight too. Hopefully, and I'm sure like even this conversation with you has inspired other people to maybe get outside of their lane or think outside the box with their live performances. You know, that's something that I try to continue to stay inspired to do for myself as well. And it's fulfilling, you know, when you figure out a technical hurdle like you and all of your modular and all this stuff, and then you get to the place of where it's just playing and you don't have to think anymore on stage. To me, that's the best achievement as far as the live performance is you don't have to think, you can just play. And it takes a little bit to get there.
Well, and that's I think that's also like circling back to like, you know, the idea of like virtuosity. Ultimately, I think that's the goal of that too. I'm friends with like insane players. They practice and practice and practice and learn and learn and learn so that when they have a musical thought in their head, it just comes out without them having to like think about it. The only thinking was the moment of inspiration. Like, and I think that's getting there should be like everybody's goal. Even just DJing. I mean, I don't really want to ever plan out a DJ set just because I want to like be able to like feel inspired and like get surprised by how a blend works. You know, like I want to be shocked that I want to play whatever. Like that somebody in the crowd is making me think like, oh yeah, like that song would kill right now. You know, I think I always kind of needed to feel like anything could happen.
Yeah, the little elements of surprise. Can you be either the best or the worst, depending on what that surprise is? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. Well, I do want to respect your time. I do want to briefly talk about your record label, Psychic Hotline. What made you want to start that label or be a part of that?
Well, at first it was like the label we put on all of our friends' releases that we like helped get distribution for.
That's cool.
But then this kind of crazy thing happened where both our first record and Amelia's other band, Mountain Man, their first record, we got the rights back to both those albums like at the same time. And we were kind of looking around for like where, you know, okay, well, what do we do with these? Like, do we self-release them? Do we find a label? What would this look like? And then we started thinking about like, well, if we did find a label, like what would we want them to be? And we started kind of making a list of like our dream place we would put them. We took a lot of meetings and like that label just didn't exist. And so we were like, why don't we take the Psychic thing more seriously and try to find like real distro and like, and we teamed up with Secretly to be our distribution partner. And they just like helped us like level up like crazy. And, since then it's turned into this, I mean, I just kind of can't believe it. Like it's turned into this crazy, beautiful project. We put out, this album by, this guy, Tim Bernardes from Sao Paulo. And, he's just like blowing up in this way that we are thrilled about.
That's cool.
I don't know. It's just, it feels like we can finally put our money where our mouths are in terms of like how we think labels should operate and what we think splits for artists should be, how the world should work in an ideal world. Yeah. It's cool to be in a position where, you know, we have a couple records on the label that help fund it. and that don't need a ton of work. And we can use all that to help artists that we think are amazing to like, own their own work and get off the ground and like get established. And I don't know, man, I just kind of can't believe it. Like, here's the thing. A couple months ago, we have this single series that we've been doing for a long time. A month ago, like this week, we put out a collab single by Kieran Hebden and William Tyler, two of my favorite artists. And we got to help release like a 12-inch single for their one-off collaboration,
Cool.
which is like the dream to me of being able to, facilitate work.
Yeah. That says a lot about you and Amelia too. I mean, the fact that you've achieved some level of success and now you're willing to give back to help these other maybe up and coming, not as well known artists. Like that says a lot about you guys too. I think that's really cool. It's a very respectable thing that you guys are spending your time helping other artists achieve their dreams as well.
I mean, thanks, but like I truly I kind of reject the idea that this is even altruistic. Like I truly believe that this is the way the music industry should work. And it's interesting to be able to have the opportunity to like see if it can work that way. I think I get more out of it than even the artists. Like that's talking about the job of staying inspired, being able and lucky enough to be like surrounded by all these people making this music that I find so incredible and so inspiring and get to be like a part of it in a deeper way. I feel like I gain so much from that.
Yeah.
I would be so much less inspired on a day-to-day basis if we didn't get to do this. So like, thank you. But like, it's truly one of those things where everybody wins. I don't, you know what I mean? I kind of don't like the idea that like this is some charity. You know what I mean?
No, I wouldn't call it a charity.
Yeah, maybe that's a too strong a word, but
in my opinion, like time is the most valuable asset you have. And I think that how you use it obviously can change other people's lives and affect your own life too in the process. But I think it is a cool idea just to even think about like, I have this platform, I have these resources to help other people, and then I'm being fulfilled at the same time. Like that's a beautiful thing, I imagine, or a good feeling.
I mean, I love it. Yeah.
That's dope.
Spending money in cool ways is like what everyone who has any money should do. Like it's the best.
Right. Yeah. If you have money, spend it on cool shit. Moral of the story. Like other people who are also cool. Yeah. So what is the future for the record label? Do you have like a vision or a plan down the road what you would like to see it become, or like what are your goals with that?
I mean, we're lucky enough to have a release schedule that's booked through the end of next year, and it's all albums that are wildly different and I think are the coolest shit that's happening. So that's the main focus right now is prepping the next slate of releases, all of which are totally nuts. We have a couple things that we're finishing up. Amelia and I are producing a record for her bandmate Alex, who goes by Daughter of Swords. She's producing a record for this visual artist, Nat Russell. Yeah, what else? We're just about to release an album by Sam Gindel, who's somebody we've worked with a ton, the saxophone player.
Cool.
He and his partner made a collaborative audio-visual album that we're releasing in VR, which has been a crazy experience. But yeah, he's somebody who the label I feel like has given me an opportunity to like get to know better, and his work I find to be incredibly inspiring.
Very cool. I'm very interested to see what music and audio and the arts look like for artists when it comes to VR. I think that is the future. I think it's inevitable.
It is trippy. It's cool. I really love it.
It's really interesting. Have you ever produced specifically for like VR or like Unreal Engine or anything like that? Like, have you dabbled in any of that? Okay.
No, the closest we've gotten is we have a song in Fortnite right now. That's like literally
that's cool.
Like as close as we've ever come. No, this was we were sitting around. He sent this record and all these illustrations over to us, and we were talking through. And he was just kind of like, I just don't want to do like the normal thing. Like I just don't want to do like a book or like what's the thing. And Amelia was the one who had this idea of doing a VR thing, and she kind of like got the people together and shepherded the whole thing. And our team has been amazing and helped put it together. And it's very wild, but he's so cool, and his partner is an amazing artist, so it's great.
That's really dope. Yeah, I look forward to seeing more of your releases with not only Sylvan, but like with Psychic Hotline and Made of Oak, you've got your hands in a lot of projects. So it sounds like you're hella busy. You've still got the rest of the tour to finish off. So hopefully I'll get to see you in Denver.
I've got I start 9 weeks on Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go. I know that you're busy, and this has been really awesome connecting with you. And I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while and nerd out a little bit. I'll definitely do some homework on some of these modular names that you dropped. I think that's kind of a really fun project with the DJing hybrid techno modular world that you've been working on. So a lot of cool projects in the works, man, and love what you do. And yeah, any
Thanks,
last
man.
thoughts you want to share with people of upcoming projects or things?
No, Sylvan's about to be on tour forever. Come see us. Dan, if you want to come see us in Denver, let me know. I'll tell you, put you on the list. Like, you can come see the rig.
I would totally take you up on that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, man. Just like, I mean, I think you got my, you can have your people call my people, but yeah.
I'll have my people call
yeah,
you.
just hit me up. Yeah.
Sick. Awesome, man. Well, everybody check out the links in the show notes. Make sure you give Nick and Amelia a follow for the label, all the things that they have going on, the 6 million projects they're doing. So thanks again, man, for hanging out. Appreciate your time. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you in Denver when you come out.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dan.
All right, take it easy. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. If you didn't hate this podcast episode, please leave a Spotify review. Give me those 5 stars. It would really help me out a lot, and I can crank out more content like this. Also, don't forget to check all the links in the show notes for this episode for more details. Follow the guests, give them some love. If you want to stay connected with new upcoming episodes and be the first to see them come out, along with other free Max for Live devices or sample packs or things that I'll be sending out for free, join the newsletter. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Link in the show notes for that as well. Also, if you didn't know, you can interact with me and others on this podcast. Tell me what you think about this episode. If you go to Spotify and click on the episode, then there's a place where you can share your comments, thoughts, and it's a great way to connect with me and others about each episode. Much love. Until next time, I'll see you later.